know what you knew. Restless every time we start locking eyes. Lost control. Oh, it's paradise with honesty, but I'm in the dead of the night. Let the darkness take control. Let the darkness take control. Darkness take control. May the darkness take control. Take me in the smoke, breathe me in and let me go. Sink to your heart to find you. Open up your eyes till you're blinded by the lies, so you can see what you do. Restless every time we start locking eyes. Lost control. Oh, it's paradise with honesty, but I'm in the dead of the night. Teardrops on the floor. The pain is over. Feel the darkness take control. Darkness take control.
Memories die out too hard. And we were traveling mountains just to find the loudest seas. We set down by the fire, knowing we couldn't hide, but we didn't know that yet. So if you want something to hold on to, gotta find it first. But here I am, 'cause I've been laying under palm trees, waiting for the summer, knowing there's nowhere to go. 'Cause I am happy on this side.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the action of the Tour Championship, and this time around it is going to be Zhao's turn against Chris Wakelin, session number 2, to see which one of those two players will be the third to reach the semi-final stage. We already know that it's going to be at the top part of the draw, Watchalong against Neil Robertson, after both of them had really good campaign against Barry Hawkins and Sean Murphy respectively, with a decider to be taken in a match for the ace in the pack. And then, of course, the match against the Hulk taking the 18 frames being the distance, and still both Robertson and Trump managed to defeat their respective opponents, with Murphy and Hawkins joining the list of Chip Choi, Mark Williams, and Weezer to be already out of the tournament. But which one of those two players will be able to progress? You know, the first round, of course, didn't feature Zhao, as he was one of the top seeded players of the 1 year list, not to be drawn into the first round of those matches. Chris Wakelin's got a little bit of a different story to himself, because he did have to try and come back from being 6-2 down in his match against Weezer, but still managed to do that really well, winning 8 out of those 8 frames at the end, and turning that 6-2 of a deficit into a really comfortable 10-6 of a win. So it was a great performance that by Wakelin, but at the same time, you know, you probably have to put that down slightly to Weezer not firing on, not even all cylinders, but it looked like he didn't have any of those cylinders to fire at all. Now, it is going to be a potential repeat of that, because if you walk through the first session of the match in between Zhao and Chris Wakelin, then Zhao got himself off to a really good start, taking a 3-0 lead against Wakelin. Had a century break, had another couple of breaks of 60 plus, and you can see based on total points number, he's got 551 in comparison to 254 of those being made by Chris Wakelin. So almost twice, well, more than twice of an advantage there in terms of those points scored. But when it comes to frames won, which is going to be the most important factor of the game, you can see that after being 3-0 down, Wakelin did manage to make it 3-1 at the intermission, and then the second mini session finished up with 2 frames each, with Wakelin winning the last frame to make sure that he doesn't repeat history for himself, and he's still going to have that 5-3 of a deficit to try and overcome in the match against Zhao. So then, with the match starting in just a couple of minutes, you have to come through the way of the draw has gone so far. You know, the brilliant match of Trump against Murphy, by far the best of the tournament, with 19 frames to be played, but still such high quality, and Murphy was really unfortunate to be missing out on the semi-final feature. But once again, the first time in the season where Trump managed to win a decider, losing out the likes of Matthew Stevens, Elias Lesser, and then, of course, Zhao, John Higgins twice there, numerous ones, Jack Lisowski in the final of the Northern Ireland. All of those have to be adding up there for John, but he was always going to win one at some point. And, you know, Gary Wilson at the Wuhan Open as well at the quarterfinals to the eventual runner-up. So Trump's finally managed to end that particular streak, and he's not going to be playing John Higgins in the semi-final, although the Wizard of Wishaw may still try and get himself through to the battle of either Chris Wakelin or Zhao at the lower side of the draw, and try and make it into another ranking event final this season. He already is going to be lined up for at least one place above there on his usual ranking, because if you haven't seen, the official top 16 for the Crucible of all the seeded players has been released, and no surprise that he is going to have the top 16 players from it. But ultimately, you know, you're going to have Mark Williams to be missing out on a couple of those ranking points, because 175,000 that he scored 2 years ago after beating Ronnie O'Sullivan in a great match of 10 frames to 5. Of course, losing out in the first round is not really going to help his pursuit of that, and it is going to be all the way for probably the world number 6 for Williams, because you know, he found himself with scoring around 1 million points exactly, and if you take 200,000 of those away, he's going to be looking at to be very close towards Mark Selby. And of course, Selby's still potentially in the contention there to try and leapfrog the likes of John Higgins and Mark Williams to get himself back into the top 6 or even potentially top 5 to be joining the likes of Zhao, Neil Robertson, Karen Wilson, that is going to be missing out on the Tour Championship ahead of his 2-year on from his defense of the Crucible. And Trump still reigning to be the world number 1 for another couple of months certainly, because he did have a brilliant campaign in 2024, so he's going to be losing out on 100,000 worth of ranking points, even if he is to be eliminated in the first round, which still probably something that will never happen at this stage. But if you look at the way that he's managed to perform 2 seasons from now on, of course, he made it through to the quarterfinals, which will get him 50,000 worth of ranking points at that stage. And now we're about to welcome the players to be coming onto the arena. This is going to be really interesting to see, because for the first time, we're going to have both of those matches to be finishing. Of course, the The first two quarterfinals have already ended with Zhao and Neil Robertson to be progressing through to the semi-finals, but now John Higgins and Zhao are going to be leading Chris Wakelin and Mark Selby by 5 frames to 3, which leaves both of them to be the favourite. You know, Higgins is also going to be slightly more conventional than the ones for Zhao, because if you have a look at John Higgins, it's now 136 for him to be in the semi-final, 2.20 for Selby. And despite having the same scoreline, it is now going to be 7.0 for Chris Wakelin and 1.10. Very confident in terms of the odds there for Zhao to be the one joining the, either John Higgins or Mark Selby in the semi-final. But so far, you have to say, after having such a good run at the Players' Championship and at the World Grand Prix, he's been a little bit quiet at the Welsh Open, losing out to Stuart Bingham in the last 16, and of course having the same thing to be done to to Gary Wilson. He was about to play Chipchaya in the quarterfinals, but lost out to Wilson by 5 frames to 2, played a horrible snooker as well, and now he's going to be looking to try and come back stronger. Missed out in the first round, didn't have to play that match. Wakelin still had a couple of really positive points there for him to be taken into the quarterfinal stage, not even because of him winning 8 frames on the bounce, because as I say, a good aspect of that was due to his opponent struggling massively, especially in some of those frames, but it was down to his ability to be winning those frames in a different style, because sometimes you feel like there's going to be a 70 break, very much waiting for him after a brilliant long shot. Sometimes it's going to be very much trying to make it a 50-50 of a frame to go in his direction, making fewer of those mistakes. And then on some occasions, he even was down to being 50 points behind and still having the ability to come back, force his opponent to make a couple of those errors and be stealing those frames away there. So, as I said, I feel like Zhao is going to be by far the favourite in this encounter, but one thing that you mustn't be doing is take Chris Wakelin for granted, because if he's going to be the player that is the underdog, then probably one of the few players that can always deliver a little bit of an upset. As once again, we are going to be moving down to table number 2. It's very rare that you see the reigning world champion to be playing on the second table, but I think it's going to be down to, first of all, of course, he had to share the arena with the likes of Watchalong and Sean Murphy yesterday in the evening, and then it's now going to be against a multiple-time world champion, a 4-time world champion for each of them, John Higgins, and of course Mark Selby as well. So what's it going to be this time around? Of course, the referee for the match is going to be Rob Spencer, same as yesterday evening. And now it is going to be a great encounter here, whatever you think about Wakelin and Zhao, because both of the players are going to be playing the snooker the way it should be played, in the attacking fashion. Plenty of opportunities for each one of them, but I feel like Zhao is going to have that lead, which is going to be very important in the opening couple of frames, because inevitably it will give him a chance to try and take that match to a certain control there, in terms of if he's going to have a chance to be taking that control of the encounter. He certainly should be doing that with great conviction of even if he is going to be losing a couple of those frames, then he's still going to have a great chance to try and deliver the best form very much late into the match. But now we're about to welcome the Chris Wakelin, the world number 13, which still, I mean, people say that he hasn't had a good run against the top 10 players. Well, I'll tell you what, he had a really good run at the Saudi Masters earlier this season, managed to get himself into the semi-finals, and then, of course, blowing all the doors away, despite being the runner-up and the second favourite in pretty much every single one of his matches at the Scottish Open. Now it's going to be down to Chris Wakelin to have potentially the biggest challenge of the season there. You know, he's had that challenge before at the World Grand Prix in the quarterfinals as well. Didn't manage to complete the comeback of being 4 frames to 1 down against Zhao, but managed to force a decider. Of course, the two players have already met this season in the Saudi Arabia Masters that I mentioned. It was the last 16 match, which Wakelin was able to take away from Zhao and get himself off with a win of 6 frames to 5. Once again, forcing a decider despite, that match taken in stages. Wakelin had a 3-1 lead, was 3-5 down, and able to find 3 more frames for him to be taking that one into the quarterfinal, and then of course losing out in the semis to the runner-up of the entire tournament of Ronnie O'Sullivan, Ayola Letitia, and Now then, the world champion is in the arena as well. Zhao is about to be welcomed there by the fans. And now it's going to be all eyes on table number 1. Remember, Wizard of Wishaw against the Jester from Leicester. Mark Selby against John Higgins. It's going to be a really interesting battle for you to keep an eye on as well. But this match is certainly going to be a bit more attacking, I would say. Because, if you look at the way that the first session has gone, you certainly have to put that down to be in favour of Zhao. He's now, not even with the points that he scored, but just with the way that even, when you feel like Chris Wakelin was taking those frames away, I'm not taking anything away from Chris, but you felt like at some point he was down to Zhao maybe taking a shot which wasn't really available to him, and that has sometimes played a bit of a bad joke with him. So now, with Chomp against Robertson being the semi-final lineup, not for the first time this season, it's going to be the complete repeat of the UK Championship, and Mark Selby is still going to be in the tournament as well, being at the other side of a draw at that point and winning the UK Championship. The last win up to date that he has got in the ranking events, or the wins altogether, because he came straight after winning the Champion of Champions. Now then, the introduction to Table 1 is complete, and it's going to be Zhao and Chris Wakelin with a handshake. So then, let's see what the world champion and Wakelin himself are going to be able to deliver, because for now, certainly on paper, it does look like a fascinating match. Zhao is about to take a break off. He's not going to be doing that in the Sean Murphy style, which seen plenty of people to analyse. Trump was himself saying yesterday that sometimes you could be put down to the referee not rocking up the reds perfectly well, and then if you touch the third red in the wrong fashion there with a millimetre to spare, then you could find yourself in a little bit of trouble, because it's still going to be very much universal to only Sean Murphy for now. But Wakelin seems like he's going to have a red lined up at the left corner. He probably knows he needs to try and take this game over to Zhao, and he's not going to be able to beat him by trying to play defensive. He can always try and take the foot off the pedal slightly by taking the right of a short approach. But for now, that red is going to be unsuccessful of an attempt, but with him missing that one so much, the red is going to cannon to go all the way to the top end of the table here, and the red is about to go past the yellow. Other table is Higgins 5 versus Selby 3 exactly. Oh, I tell you what, that was really close from Zhao, and I'm not even sure if he's managed to get the cover. He just about has, but that red should have been way down the table in comparison to where the cube was finished. It does look like he's going to get the cover on the brown, but what's it going to be then? Well, Wakelin has got other plans about it. He clearly feels like he can get through to the red. I have to say, I'm not really sharing his opinion, but it doesn't really matter about me. It was the Wakelin story. Brilliant shot there. A bit fortunate with getting that cue to be rolling in the jaws of the left corner and taking that one to go all the way to the right. So still being way lower than the black, and probably doesn't even need to hold the cue ball, just needs to try and play that one into the open space by potting the black at the same time. He's managed to do that, but well, he seems to have caught the cue ball to be sort of going sideways. So unless that black is going to be going far away from its own spot, it looks like Wakelin is not really going to have anything available to him. Although it does look like at this red, at the right middle, certainly looks like he's about to be considering to be taking this red into the right middle. And it's going to be all down to just taking this red very carefully into the right part of the table. Make sure that cue ball is going to be functioning in the best possible way. And that cue ball is going to be taken away from the top end of the table, and just make sure it bounces nicely onto the right side of the cushion. And Wakelin's about to get himself lined up for another safety battle there. I wouldn't expect to see too many of those, especially featuring, Zhao here. He's probably about to be taking this one to go all the way in relation to the cue ball, trying to carefully catch one of those reds, make sure that he doesn't compromise the black too much. I mean, I'm not going to say he's compromised it, but he certainly did catch the black in the end. And that cue was going to barely go over the bulk line, which puts it nicely in relation to those two reds. And so then what's it going to be for Chris Wakelin? It does seem like he's going to have a look at the two reds with a plant about to be taken into the right corner. And the good news about them is that it's going to be very difficult for you to try and catch any other reds, which means it's going to have those ones to be lined up in a straight line. He seems to have taken out pretty well But that cue ball is not going to be finishing in a nice position for the colour. So it's going to be down to either taking the black into the left corner with a long shot after Zhao has made a minor contact with it, or taking the pace away from the cue ball and making sure the white is going to be sticking to the brown. It's going to be a pretty good short selection though from Wakelin, because that leaves Zhao in a pretty difficult position in terms of, you know, the usual back of 13 or 12 reds that he could have used in some of those frames previously. It's not really going to be there. So that's going to be all down to that cue ball about to be taken towards the left-hand side. And yeah, just carefully planting that cue ball to go all the way. And well, he seems to have caught the jaw of the middle pocket, which didn't really help. I'm not going to say compromising badly at all, but now it's going to be 4 points to be given away to Chris Wakelin. And it seems like Chris is about to take a couple of moments to just study the position, and then he's going to be giving the turn back to Zhao. Of course, the 3 misdraw is not going to be relevant because of the full contact ball being covered up by the brown. So it's going to be down to the referee to try and get that cue ball lined up in a perfect position. Looks like it won't matter too much, although Zhao is going to be asking to have that cue ball to be placed slightly closer towards the brown, because it's not really going to get him any sort of initiative, but at the same time, he needs to make sure that if he does adjust the line of taking that shot, then he needs to be doing that properly. So they're about to just carefully take that cue ball towards the left side cushion, but this time around, I mean, he's trying to take a different line to the one that I would have been taking, but to be fair, his choice of a shot was a lot more safer in terms of, you know, I was going to suggest him playing a red towards the black ball cushion, but always a little bit risky with those, that if you play that shot with a bit too much power, especially if you catch that red thin on the edge or just push it towards the right corner, then you're always going to have a risk of giving that one away. In the end, the short selection from Zhao, he has left that touch and ball for Chris Wakelin, which is going to be music to his ears, but ultimately has allowed them to be using 2 of those cushions to make sure he was going to be catching a red from underneath, which puts any of those risks of leaving a chance away to Wakelin pretty much down to 0. So Wakelin using that touch and ball pretty well. So playing the cue ball away onto the black ball, and then the right side cushions, finishing up nicely for the bulk, and yeah, perfectly down the straight line as well. Just about, seems like at least, that Zhao is going to have a chance to try and catch those reds thin on the edge. Well, thin on the edge wasn't really the way to describe that shot, and yeah, for now, Wakelin certainly has got Zhao on the ropes, because he seems to be making an error after an error, but you can't say it's unforced, because certainly all of those have been forced by Wakelin himself, and despite having a 13 points of a lead, he certainly managed to dominate the starting point of the second session for now. So then he's about to take a red closest to the right corner. It's not going to have the best of those angles in relation to the cue ball, but in the end the red is going to find the back of the pocket, so just needs that cue ball to slow down. He's played that shot poorly there, Wakelin, and he knows that. You know, as much as that red wasn't a great cut for that cue ball, but still should have been way down the table, and now finds himself perfectly alongside the yellow, and both of those 2 position on the bulk line. He still has to take it, but now the journey towards the next red and actually trying to pot the yellow is not going to be easy. The yellow is in, and the journey for the cue ball seems to be completed nicely. Not going to say it's going to be completed perfectly though. With the black being out of position, the pink probably not being potable, it needs a little bit of the angle on this red to try and get that cue ball to be bouncing away. So for now, Wakelin's about to study the position of, well, those reds into the right corner. I'm not really sure why he needs to know that information now. Maybe having a look at the contact point with the cue ball, because if he's about to take a red closer to those 2, then he certainly is going to be trusting into a little bit of luck there. But at the same time, if he gets really firmly into the shot, then he should have a really nice chance to try and take this one away. And in the end, as I say, it wasn't the easiest raid. It wasn't certainly the most difficult one, but he still needed to get that one into the corner. That wasn't the case, and Zhao, despite, as I say, being on the ropes throughout the starting point of the frame, is about to find himself very much in charge of a great position ahead of himself. being only 16 points behind as well, about to put the black onto its own spot. Whether he's going to be able to use it straight away remains to be seen, and well, straight away seems to have a bit of a problem here in relation to where the black is going to go, because he seemed to have played the cue ball slightly lower than he would have liked. But to be fair, that was only the look at the first time of asking. He's still going to have a great chance of continuing the break and making sure that black ball spot is going to be cleared up of any one of those reds, which he did have 4 off to be in the way of the black, but ultimately not into the left corner. So about to take first of those black away. So within 16 points each. And yeah, in relation to those reds, the problem for Wakelin is that he's actually managed to separate those ones straight away with all the safety battles that we've seen. And the worst news for him is that he's done that for his opponent here. And Zhao is about to be trying to do something that he's certainly going to be considered the best with in the world, making sure that he has got a really good line with the cue ball for the third black to be taken. Zhao is about to ask the referee to clean the white, which did happen a little bit early into the match. As by the way, on table number 1, Mark Selby is about to go for only the second break of 50 plus there in the entire match, and making it the break of 58 points, which is still going to be second best in relation to the 68 that he's made in frame number 4. Now then, the minor delay of the referee cleaning the white is about to go away. So Zhao is going to be returning back to the action and taking that black with loads of power. So clearly not trying to hold the cue ball back for the red closer to the black ball cushion, which probably is going to be a wise shot there, because he's certainly not going to need that one for the frame to be completed. And probably the only red, apart from the one next to the right side cushion, which he wouldn't really need either of one of those two. That could be considered as an issue. So just make sure you take all the easier reds away, which he certainly has got plenty of for now. 4 more if you don't count the red next to the pink, which will get him 32 more points. And then with 24 being the advantage right now, that should be leading him very close to a frame ball, even without taking a red next to the pink, which I still have a strong feeling that he will go into the left corner. So taking the red once again carefully into the left part of the table. And despite catching too much of the front jaw, manages to drop the red in, but more importantly, still going to be the right side of the blue, which makes sure that he doesn't have anything to do on the positional play here. So just carefully make his way towards those reds. Make sure he's going to be lined up for probably a rest shot now, because he has underplayed for those reds to be taken into the left part of the table. So probably only makes sense for him to be taking a red now for the right corner here, and then just move on towards the black. Make sure he's not going to have too many of those issues as he progresses to the second point of the frame. Probably in the end points at the same time, because, you know, the fact that Wakelin was able to only score 16 points there certainly have seemed to play a bit of a bad joke with him. And still, despite having that 6-2 of a difference against Weezer, of course, he was able to win the 9th frame away, which left him with 6-3 points of a difference in terms of those frames. And, well, one thing you can certainly say is that Zhao is going to be a lot more experienced from being at the stage than Weezer. You know, doing that at the UK Championship previously against Luca Brissell in the first 10 over format, doing that against John Higgins and Janganda earlier this season, and ultimately still being very much the great form of what we've seen at the Crucible in the previous year as well. Now then, it is going to be Zhao taking another great red into the right middle, making sure that he's still going to have himself lined up nicely for the black, which leaves him with 46 points of the advantage, with 59 still to be available. By the way, in relation to Mark Selby, he's about to make the first century of the match against John Higgins. So Selby certainly seems like he's not going to be giving an inch there to the Wizard in the starting point of the second session. Certainly same can't be said about Chris Wakelin. He had an early chance of his after dominating the first part of the frame, but only able to score 16 points out of it. Now leaves Zhao with getting himself over the line. 54 points of a difference with 51 at the table. No applause from the crowd Certainly waiting for a potential century break. Still available to be made. It's not going to be the case here, though, because Zhao decided to be taking a red along the black ball cushion. And he's about to be having that red to stay out. So Chris Wakelin is going to be coming back to the table. 54 points of a difference, 51 at the table. So Chris is still going to have a great chance to try and pop those 2 reds. Well, probably try and leave the red next to the pink away. Try and do it with the black next to those 2 reds. And then it's going to be purely down to trying to get that snooker lined up. He only needs 1 of them. And he doesn't need a sign of a respot or anything like that. So to be fair, still going to be lined up nicely in relation to his chances of winning the frame. As he decides to try and, well, clearly realised that he wasn't going to have a realistic approach of taking that red along the side cushion, so needed to play a red next to the pink, which would have been the ideal lineup for a snooker. But in relation to those colours, it was always going to be down to just scoring 19 points here after the black and making sure he's still going to be able to get himself lined up nicely for a chance to try and take this one away from Zhao. So just having a look at the relation of the black towards the red. About to take it nicely into the left corner. So then 38 points of a difference, 35 at the table. And he's certainly going to be looking at this red to be taken at the top end of it. Make sure he's going to have a huge bounce on the red in relation to those side cushions and try and get the red probably as far away as he can away from those cushions, but at the same time it's going to be very important for him to try and get the cover from the cue ball as well, to be lined up either on the pink or the black. So then what's he going to be? What is he going to try and take the cue ball away towards the top hand side of the table? And he seemed to play this one a bit poorly there, because it was a good attempt of a cross double in relation to him, of course, not playing that one. So clearly it wasn't a good execution of whatever he had in mind. Zhao is going to have this red visible, and he's certainly not going to have any issues with taking this red away. So after all the, well, a little bit of an attempt from Wakelin to try and take it, and just check what I missed, and Neil was qualified, Big Clash versus Trump. Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one, because as I say, it's a rematch for the UK Championship semi-final, where, you know, Neil probably was the second best player of the tournament before it came down to the semis, but he wasn't himself on that day, and Trump was able to take it pretty comfortably, 6-2, 6-3, whatever it was, but I'm pretty sure he was down to, you know, purely the class of Neil having the ability to try and take those frames away, and at the end point, to be fair, he was always going to be Trump's match to be losing. But now Zhao he's about to have his match to be lost, because he's about to put another brown into the yellow pocket and get himself lined up with potentially 100 points to be scoring, with the break of 70 points to be made previously, and could still have a really good run of ending on the perfect clearance here of 32 points. And certainly, well, pretty much double his advantage in terms of total points scored. He's not going to bother about the black, because it doesn't really matter. It is going to be the break of 25 points planned for tomorrow. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so basically what you're going to have with semis is that at least they managed to sort that thing out of you're going to have one semi-final on a Friday and the other one on a Saturday, so that you can try and spread those out across 2 sessions. So I would have thought that Robertson against Trump is going to be played tomorrow, because that gives, you know, a little bit of breathing space towards either Zhao, Chris Wakelin, and Mark Selby and John Higgins there, because, you know, they're playing their matches now at the evening session, so it would probably be unfair on them having to be asked to play another match at 1 o'clock tomorrow in the afternoon, and then finishing it off with the 7 o'clock as well. But yeah, then it's going to be Zhao and John Higgins for now, looking the more likely of the two to be completing the side of a draw. But I'm pretty sure the likes of Mark Selby and Chris Wakelin will have a word or two to say about that, because, you know, Wakelin is still going to be by far probably the biggest runner-up in terms of having the fewer of those chances to be completing that semi-final lineup. Now being 6-3 down, you know, he was a very different start to the first session than the one that he had against Weasley yesterday. And Higgins, to be fair, You know, he seemed to have that gap against Williams of 6 frames to 2 extended to 7-2. And he's about to have a very different scoreline after the first 9 frames. Evening, everyone. All good, I hope. Yes. Nice to see you back in the chat there, Joe. So, yeah, it's going to be down to all good if your team Zhao Xingtong. It's not going to be so good if your team Chris Wakelin, because for now, it does seem like he's going to be struggling with, in the meantime, John Higgins having a wonder of a red that he's managed to pot. Now, about to try and re-establish that 2 frames of an advantage. So, you're going to be all down to the second century to be made by Zhao Xingtong, because he's had a break of 103 previously, and now, a break of 120 previously, and now he's about to have another couple of those potentially in his mind. And the highest one for Wakelin so far has been 76 points. So, yeah, then let's have a brief look at how Higgins is doing, because we're going to have the frame number 10 to be kicking off. Chris Wakelin gives the turn back to Zhao Xingtong after a decent break-off, of course something that Zhao wasn't able to do himself. And now just trying to force the red to be heading closer to the right corner. Seems to have bounced that one away from the pocket, but has he done that with enough of a distance? The answer is the blue will have probably a say in that, because the raid certainly would have been possible there had the blue not been in the way. And yeah, it's going to be purely down to taking a careful raid towards the right side cushion. Make sure that cue ball is going to be getting around the yellow, and seems to have played this one superbly well there, Wakelin. He had a big area to be targeting, but at the same time, seems to have judged the pace of the cue ball superbly well, especially with him only leaving out the left-hand side of the table here for Xingtong, which is going to be the more difficult for him to try and catch the reds from. Because if you say he's left the left side cushion, it would have been a very different story. And right earlier, no, it's completely false there, Joe. So that was supposed to be going for yesterday. So that was April Fool. So yeah, it's always a bit of a problem that you read that on the 2nd of April and then, no, absolutely not. I hope it's not true, because, you know, you always feel that sometimes after the end of the Crucible, one of the class of 92 will eventually announce it to be the case, but hopefully it won't be this season, because, you know, Higgins, Williams and O'Sullivan are still looking to be competing next season as well. But, yeah, but to be fair, I mean, to me, it seems like the most logical of the big three in relation to Williams, Higgins and Ronnie to stay will probably be Higgins, because yes, you could say that, you know, Ronnie's he's the greatest of all time, and he's always going to have a little bit more of longevity in him. So, yeah then. So, Chris Wakelin there, just asking for a little bit of help from Zhao Xingtong. Let's have a little listen to this one, because Rob Spencer's saying that if you're looking from this side, it's definitely not touching. So, Wakelin's trying to find a touching ball. So Xingtong seems to be saying that he's touching as well. So he seems to be on the side of the Chris Wakelin there. So good sportsmanship there from Zhao. So in the end, even though Chris Wakelin has taken the route of looking from the same angle as the referee of Rob Spencer, you know, Rob being very much sportsmanlike as well from his point, saying that if both players agree that he's going to be touching, then Chris is going to have a chance to try and play that cue ball away from those reds. And yeah, but the thing about Higgins there, because in relation to the three of them, he's certainly going to be the one that I would actually say has had by far the most consistent of a season. Yes, he hasn't managed to win anything, but neither has Ronnie. You know, he's managed to make himself through to the 2 of those finals. Lost both against Chipchaya and Robertson at the different parts of the season. Williams has only made 1 final, but of course was able to absolutely destroy Murphy on his way to winning the China Grand Prix. So then, Zhao Xingtong is probably about to take a red away into the corner. And, well, a bit of a surprising one to be taking on, to be fair, because I don't really understand what he was getting out of it, apart from a potential risk of leaving the same red away. In the end, he's missed it, but he has rolled it along the black cushion. So he's probably not going to have anything available to Chris Wakelin. Re-rack. Well, I'll tell you what, it won't be the worst news if you look at the way that the black and the pink are going to be positioned. If I had to say someone from Class 92 retire, I would bet Ronnie, because he's playing less and less, even if he takes much pleasure to watch him, then he does. Brilliant shot there by Wakelin. You know, I said that Zhao was always going to be leaving himself in a little bit of a danger zone. I didn't really think that he was going to be the red like that to be taken by Wakelin, but full credit to him. And about to revive the position. Well, listen, it's certainly not going to be Higgins of the Class of 92, and I completely understand what he's saying, but if anything, you could try and twist that however you want. I genuinely feel Ronnie's trying to go longer by playing less tournaments, and I know it may sound weird, but hear me out on this one. If he's going to be playing fewer of those tournaments, he doesn't have that much of a fatigue on his body, which is actually what I feel like he's doing. He's playing chess instead of playing checkers there in relation to the Crucible, because yes, he's going to be playing that exhibition match against Hendry for a great cause, and if he's going to be winning that one, which, let's be honest, he probably will, he's going to be playing the Class of 92 in the final of the John Berger Trophy, but he's going to be taking care of his body, and if he's not going to be playing too many of those tournaments, then, and if he plays well, you know, another factor about Ronnie that, you know, if he's going to be playing one tournament per year, but he plays that one well, then it's probably going to keep him going for another season there. 3 of them laps are tough cookies and hard to beat. They make you earn your victory. And he retired from snooker 3 times, a 3-time world champion, making come back 45 at for another 3 times. Well, you know, the thing about the 3 of them, that Mark Williams could be retiring, but I mean, he's won a tournament this season, and he's done that under pretty weird circumstances. So it felt like he's going to have another season to compete at least there, as Wakelin gets himself positioned for the blue about to be taken into the left part of the table. So yeah, about to take this one away, and yeah, it just depends on if he's going to be playing that cue ball into the paint. He probably does need to be doing that. And well, we got the blue in, and he's had that cue ball to be sort of colliding with all sorts of reds across the table, but in the end, it seems like he got himself a decent result in relation to he's going to have a red lined up towards the right corner, and it's always going to give him an option of trying to play for another blue about to be taken into the left part of the table. But what's it going to be in relation to the ping? Because you feel like from this point it's not really going to be possible there if you have a look at the way the pink is going to be positioned now. So you probably do need to be taking the blue, and draw is made with the plates 3 on one side of a jaw. So, yeah, just very carefully to be seeing this blue to be travelling towards the yellow pocket. Wakelin needs to be playing flawless snooker there because he finds himself being 3 frames down, but he's about to have a really good shot there on the blue. Give himself a little bit of the angle on the blue about to be taken as well. And, yeah, Wakelin certainly scoring the pots for now, but he's still going to have a really tough line for him to be taking these frames to go all the way. He's having a look at the plant of those reds, about to be taken towards the left corner. So if he's got those positioned nicely, then he's going to be a red potentially to take away from next to the ping there. So about to take those reds away. Seems to have played it well, but not quite well enough in relation to being on the wrong side of a blue doesn't really help, because as much as he's going to have one of those reds to be at the top end of the table, he's still going to have that red to try and pot it in relation to the green. And he seems to have taken the pace away from the cue ball nicely. So 29 points being the advantage. And Wakelin can still try and make this break that counts. As I say, it's going to be very difficult for him to try and win the frame from the current visit to the table. But for now, he seems to be doing everything that he can. Trying to play around the blue, the bold colours and the pink. That he's managed to get into the open play in the last couple of shots as well. So then taking the blue into the left middle, make sure that he was going to be heading across once again. Needs to leave himself with the angle every single time there, so that even if he's going to be playing for the pink, he needs to be rolling that cue ball to have a little bit of the angle to try and force it towards the left side cushion, and at the same time for him to be taking that cue ball lined up for the blue or the pink. It doesn't really matter in relation to the cue ball placement, because it just leaves you with a different spin that you need to be adding, and try and play that cue ball carefully towards the pink and those reds. Of course, the first time that you take the pink is going to go back on its own spot, and that's going to make it a real nice chance there for Wakelin. At this stage, probably he is going to be knocking on the door of trying to make it the break of 60 points or something like that, which probably will kill the frame away, certainly from the competitive point. Whether it's going to be mathematically possible for Zhao to be coming back to the table, it doesn't really matter because, you know, even if he's going to be 65 points clear with 67 at the table, having 4 reds to be compromised about as bad as he can get for them, and having the black to be surrounded by those reds, it's always going to look like that's going to be a bit of a mission impossible there for Wakelin to try and make it all the way. We'll be doing World Championship for 2 weeks. The plan is certainly to be doing that. I mean, I was looking at the draw. It's certainly going to be an interesting one because, you know, when it comes to the semi-finals, you know, it's always going to be a great temptation to try and do both of them, but whether it's going to happen or not, we'll have to wait and see. But certainly that's going to be in the plans, but still working out on that to see what the schedule is going to start with, because probably the Judgment Day, I'm not sure if it's going to be the semi-finals of the qualifying as well, but certainly when it comes to the first round, it is going to have to be looking at the draw to be made. Of course, you're going to have Zhao to be watching in the first round to try and break that Crucible curse, but at the same time, certainly my eyes are going to be on someone like Ronnie playing, trying to make himself to go one step closer towards a potential Magical 8. And yeah, certainly there needs to be a sort of forfeit there for me to try and do. I just haven't figured out what can it be there in relation to Ronnie making that 8 Masters, 8 UK Championships and 8 World titles. Certainly going to be a potential reason for him to try and retire from snooker. But of course, we're still going to be at least 5 matches away from that, and 17 days away from that as well. And don't offer. Well, this is the thing there, because it's not even down to this, but it's going to be down to the pure point of fascination that you want to be seeing everything that's going on. By the way, Wakelin about to take the frame ball, and he has done that. So congratulations there to Wakelin, because that was a really tough break for him to be making, and he's probably about to equal that break of 70 points made by Zhao in the previous frame, and can try and make the contact to those reds next to the black. It doesn't really work out too well for him, but I feel like Zhao is not really going to be the one to try and come back to the table whilst needing 3 snookers and having those reds positioned pretty horribly there at the end. So just trying to carefully take it with the red along the black ball cushion, and in the end, Wakelin is able to do that. So then 71 points of the advantage. And on table number 1, by the way, every single time you look towards it, it seems like Selby's the one playing those shots, and Higgins seems to be the one sitting in his chair all the time. And yeah, that was a really difficult ping to be taking there. And Wakelin's pretty lucky that he didn't fluke that one to, unlucky that he didn't fluke it into the left middle. But at the end, it wasn't really going to be a century break. So now it's still going to be a really good break of 71 points. And yeah, it's now going to be 71 points. That gets Chris Wakelin over the line, and it's now going to be 6-4 on advantage in favour of Zhao after the opening 2 frames. It's still been a pretty quick start there to the match. 35 minutes in, 2 frames to be played. And at the same time, I would say, it seemed like Mark Selby was going to be the one playing the majority of those shots. He finds himself being 30 points down there, with Higgins leading by 36 points to 6, having 83 points at the table, and still having the battle for the next red. So let's see what's it going to be there, because he can still very much knocking on the door for that 2 frame of an advantage to be restored in his favour. For now, it seems like he's about to take these red on there, Higgins. Let's have a look how the match is going for them. So let me just load up the second stream as well. Ronnie's like Phil Taylor of the Tards, and Trump is like Van Gerven. Well, you could say that. You know, I feel like Van Gerven's going to be a little bit older than that, but I can certainly see the comparison. Wakelin needs to win this session. Well, he certainly does, because that's the way for you to be coming back from being a session down there. It's a really good shot that by Higgins. Sorry, it's a really poor shot that from Higgins, because now he leaves a chance away to Selby, and he's not going to be missing this one away, although he needs to keep that keyboard to be running. He's going to be positioned on the yellow, but he wants to be able to get through to the brown or green to be taken into its own pocket there. So it's going to be very close in relation to those reds about to be taken into the right-hand side of the table. So then it does seem like he's going to be committed to be heading for the brown. About to be taken. The position is not ideal, but it's certainly not the one that you would have, yourself too many worries about, especially if Selby is able to get the brown, which he will. Gets that cue ball down the table nicely, and in the meantime, Zhao has managed to break away and break off, and it's now going to be Chris Wakelin to be taking another red, probably with a safety shot selection of taking this red to go all the way to the top end of the table. That wasn't the plan, and Wakelin clearly had something else on his mind, but whatever it was, he needed to make sure that cue ball was not going to be anywhere near the red to be taken at the left-hand side of the table. But I'll tell you what, I'm not really sure about that one, because if he goes past the black, then I'm certainly going to be sure about Zhao taking this red on there, although it seems like it's not really going to be interesting in this red, which probably suggests that he's going to be covered up by the black. So Wakelin clearly did a little bit of a research, but it doesn't mean that he'll stop Zhao from trying to cue an absolute beauty into the yellow pocket. He hasn't worked out. And the red is going to cannon from the right corner, go quite far away from it. So the same red is going to be playable here for Wakelin, but it's going to be anything but easy for Chris to be taking this red away at the right corner. And as we've seen before, he hasn't made a mistake in the 10th frame, but certainly made one in the frame number 9, and that was enough to be leaving a chance away for Zhao. And 70 points later, Wakelin finds himself in a position of being 6-3 down. So after having studied all of his options, it looks like he's about to go for the red. Needs to get loads of that cue action on the cue ball though, and missed it by a mile. And that red, well, he needs to be heading further away from the middle. And in the end, it seems like he's just about got enough there with the contact in between this red and the right middle pocket that Zhao won't be taking this one at the right part of the table. So what's he going to be this time around? Because very carefully, you need to be studying the situation along the red. And if you're going to be playing a safety shot out of it, then I'm not going to say it's going to be guaranteed of a great positional success either. Because trying to put that cue ball to be heading all the way is fine. And that's certainly not going to be a difficult mission for you. But trying to get that red to be safe is going to be a bit more of a challenge. And Zhao is about to take another route of escape. Played that one pretty well, and positioning that cue ball to be way below the bog line, but at the same time, probably he's not going to have anything to give away there to Wakelin, apart from a double, which sometimes can be a real force there to threaten. Although, I'm not sure this is the right time to be taking a double on. It certainly isn't now that you miss it, and the reason why I say it is that you had so few of those reds to be available that it was going to be down to purely you pot this red or you leave it. In the end, you didn't pot it, you didn't leave it, so you sort of just managed to play a bit of a 50-50 of a safety shot there. Tell me if I'm wrong, but we have seen Zhao more brilliant, not the unstoppable player he could be. He still could lose. You mean better than this yet? Well, it's understandable because, if you take a look at, he's just missed another red, by the way, and seems like this time around he's going to have to pay the price, although is the yellow going to be in play? I'll tell you what, this is going to be close. It's going to be really close, but I feel like Wakelin just about going to be able to get through to the red. If you compare what we've seen of Zhao at the World Grand Prix and at the Players' Championship, then it's certainly been better for him. But one thing you must remember, he hasn't been better at the first round. It's the first round of a match, and if you look at the performance against Wakelin himself at the World Grand Prix, then it was, I'm not going to say it was appalling or it was horrible, but it certainly wasn't Zhao the same form of him as we've seen in the Worlds or the semi-finals of the World Championship. That really good win against Allen, where he had those frames to be working out and grinding them out there. As Wakelin in the end able to get through and pass the yellow for him to be taking the red away, and still, whenever he does take those shots on there, Wakelin, it seems like he messes himself up with so many times there on the positional side. So yeah, just to finish up with Zhao, I would actually say just give him one match there, because you look at the way Murphy's played against Trump. He's been a little bit wobbly there, and you feel like at the end it wasn't probably down to it, but it could have been down to a little bit of a much sharpness there from Trump after playing the first round match against Wakelin, because the fatigue is not going to come into play just yet, but also it's going to give you a little bit of the advantage over someone like Murphy in a couple of those moments. You look at the way that Hawkins has played, it didn't really work out for him too well against Robertson, but he was able to force out the highest seed to go 18 frames, pretty much the distance. You look at the way Selby has been playing against Higgins at the early start of it as well. So I would leave it until probably the end. Wow, that was a horrible miss from Wakelin. Can't believe it there. It seems to have been up the second that the red somehow stayed at the table. That was a horrible miss there by Wakelin because of how close the red was to the right corner. And, well, he certainly doesn't seem like he can believe it. Can he believe it, man? And, Zhao is about to take the same red along the side cushion. But one thing that you have to say about Zhao, although he's just taken that red wonderfully well, as I was about to say, he doesn't really get left with those easy chances there. Yes, the one at the 9th frame was very easy for him in terms of he was going to be perfectly suited according to his style of play. But didn't have anything in the frame number 10, didn't have anything up to this point in this frame either. Ooh, this is going to be a fine margin of shot that. He got himself 4 reds to be in open play, but now only one of them is going to be possible into the right middle. This Wakelin isn't getting thrashed by the world champion. For now, I would still leave it until, 2 more frames there. Zhao is going to be a real fighter for you as well if he's going to be able to get himself in the playing the snooker that he wants. And for now, I'm going to stick by the prediction of 10 frames to 6 because we still haven't seen the best form of Zhao. But if we are about to see it, then Wakelin's going to stand no chance at all. And no one will stand a chance against very much the best of Zhao there, apart from maybe Trump, O'Sullivan, Prime Higgins. Probably no one else. Murphy's going to be an interesting one. Prime Murphy this season against Prime Zhao this season. I probably still feel like Zhao will win, but it's going to be a hell of a close match there. Robertson is definitely coming back after missing out last year. I'm not sure. Oh, yes, he was. No, he was having a judgment day against Lisowski, which I remember just wondering how on earth both of them have actually managed to get to that stage of not being in the top 16. And I'd love to see Ding win world title. He deserves it, but be tough. Yeah, but to be fair, with so many great players at the tour, I mean, I know we've seen the perfect story of Jack Lisowski and Chang Minyu to come out of nowhere, but Steve Maguire to an extent at the Championship League as well. But, I mean, on a serious point, what have we seen of Ding Junhui apart from making it to the 3rd round of the UK Championship? Completely outplayed by Trump and making it to the quarterfinal of the China Grand Prix as well. Apart from that, it seemed like Ding has been way below his average. Certainly someone that has returned to playing some great snooker here is Zhao, because the first 2 shots that he's played, that red along the side cushion and also the black to be taken into the left part of the table, despite having that cue ball to be in such a difficult position for him in terms of the placement of the cue ball. He's managed to separate those reds away. Then he gave it a couple more flicks as well. And now he finds himself with 27 points of a lead, 2 frame advantage as well. And he's got numerous of those reds to be available to him. So then what's he going to be this time around here for Zhao? Because he seems like he's going to have a very straight positional shot here on the black, which makes him play for the reds, about to be taken into the right corner. Underplay for that one slightly, but should still have a backup option of going for the red into the left middle. But, I mean, to be fair, he can always take this red into the right corner. It's not like he's going to be positioned badly for it. The only slight thing which is going to be relevant no matter what happens after the shot is that he's going to have to take the blue here probably, not having the angle to try and play for the black, and the pink still not being available to be taken into any one of those 4 main pockets. Do you commentate on other sport, or is it just snooker? It is just snooker for now because of the specifics of the audience, because if you're going to have social media as a very much populated thing there, you have to start with something that isn't going to be covered by so many people there. And then if you have got a little bit of a fan base to try and work around with, then you're going to be bringing out other sports as well. I've got a bit of content in the F1 to be coming out over the summer. I'm working out to try and make it with the correct time frame. timeline, I should say, starting out from the 2007. Because I'll tell you what, the thing that he's done with F1 this season has certainly killed the sport away, having to manage those batteries every single lap that they're doing. So yeah, for now, that seems to be the plan, but still haven't made an official decision on what's going to happen next season, but I feel like I am going to know what's it going to be, and you know, probably let you know on something like in a couple of weeks' time there, right before the 17 days of Crucible start. Because that's exactly where the channel was sort of started a year ago. And probably is going to be a nice place to announce the plans for the next season as well. But it's certainly looking nice for snooker because, you know, the entertainment is there. And it's certainly one of those sports that seems like is actually going to be improving in the standard. Because you look at how many players we've had the breakthrough of. Chang Min-yu, Jack Lisowski, you know, being the perfect story of the season there in terms of the underdog before that tournament started. You know, who would have thought that Jack was going to be facing himself against the likes of Mark Cullen, Joey Long and Zhao, Mark Selby to try and take it all the way at the Northern Islands. Pretty sure he's managed to beat Karen Wilson as well on that run towards making it the first ranking event win of his career. And he's going to be looking at taking the blue carefully into the right middle there, Zhao. Once again, it seems like if it's going to be a break of 50 plus, it's going to have to be a break of 70 plus as well. One more mistake that from Wakelin. He's had one of those in the 9th frame as well. That was enough to be punished from Zhao with a break of 70 points exactly. Now he's about to take it into a break of 76 points and counting. Now, we haven't seen a century here so far because we've started to be doing this match from 9th frame onwards. So, so far the highest that we've seen was the break of 71 from Wakelin and 70 of Zhao. This is certainly going to be now a little bit higher than that. And Jack missed out on this tournament. He wasn't even close, I'm pretty sure, because he's going to be, well, to be fair, on the 1 year list, he may be close because obviously he's going to have the home nations bonus, which he needed to win 145,000 worth of pounds, but I mean, apart from that brilliant win at the, Northern Ireland Open and making the final of the Welsh, he hasn't really done a lot, has he, this season? I know he's had I'm pretty sure he's had another semi-final appearance, or I'm not sure actually if he has done. May have been the quarter-final there, as his highest stage that he has reached, apart from the final against Hawkins in the Welsh, and making the win against Trump in a brilliant 17-frame decider. And talk about brilliance there from Zhao, about to get himself lined up with a 99 points of a break and make that 100. Brilliant there from Zhao. 5th century break of, 3rd century break, I should say, of the tournament for him. And all 3 of them to come in this match as well. So it certainly seems like he's going to be looking for a potential chance to try and take that incredible prize of making 100 centuries in a season. It's still going to be very difficult for him to try and take that beyond that point. But now, it is going to be 109 points of a break. So it could still be 134 there if he takes this one to go all the way. And look at that, once again, re-establishes himself to have double the points scored in comparison to Chris Wakelin. And about to entertain the fans with great shots on the green and the brown. Taking the 4 points of a colour into the left corner of the table. Making sure he takes the blue away nicely into the right middle as well. And now just carefully about to position himself for the pink to be taken into the right corner. Plays that cue ball carefully across the table of both of the side cushions and position himself for a 1-3-4 of a clearance. Fantastic break there from Zhao, and he now positioned himself with 134 points. It's going to be second, or I'm not sure if it's going to be the 3rd highest break of the tournament, because I'm pretty sure Trump is going to have certainly 140, but I'm pretty sure he's had a 137 against Sean Murphy yesterday. So let's have a look, century breaks. And yeah, he had a 137 against Sean Murphy, as well as having a 140. So now Sean Murphy had a break of 132 points. So that means that Zhao is going to slot in the 3rd highest break made in this tournament so far. And he's only played around 11 of those frames. Best breaker for now, Trump with 140. Yes, exactly. So it's going to be all down to just trying to break that well, fantastic achievement there by Trump, because I feel like if anyone's going to do it, then it needs to be someone with the name of Zhao Xington. By the way, talking about Mark Selby, he was 36 points down in the previous frame, but able to come back with a great performance in frame number 10, and able to win it with 57 points, played 42, with last points on the pink to complete that break of 33 points. Higgins wasn't able to convert that 5-3 of an advantage into a positive start to second session. The same can't be said about Zhao Xington. It still seems like he's going to be flying through the gears, and it's only going to get better for the world champion of the 2025 season. So let's see if the century list is about to be updated, because yeah, for now you've got Mark Selby with 127 points of a break. Same with John Murphy. So Murphy's going to be taking the 4th and the 3rd spot for now, with Trump taking the 2nd and 1st in relation to the breaks that he's made. So let's have a very quick look to see what we're going to be seeing on the rankings. So on the centuries count, 70 for Zhao Xington. Well, I'll tell you what, is going to be really difficult, especially if he's not going to be making those centuries in the qualifiers, which he won't, obviously, because he's not going to have to be doing those. He's going to be confirmed as the top seeded player ahead of the Crucible for him to be the reigning champion. And good game. He must be in your 20s over 40s, want to have a clue. Well, it's an interesting point there, because GG's is certainly going to be the more, modern generation. But to be fair, I seem to have stopped using that one until very much the end point of a match, because I feel like it should be used only when you have something to reach its final conclusion there, which is going to be matching the end of a match or in the end of the tournament. Not really a fan of saying that every single time the frame ends, because it sort of devalues the whole statement there. What's the score for the other game? It's going to be 5 frames each. So Higgins has lost out on 2 of those frames in a row. Wakelin there with a really good start, but is he going to have a little bit of luck on the colour? Doesn't get the run of the ball there is the short answer. And once again, he's going to have to take this round. Zhao Xington's done that in the left corner for that 1-3-4 of a clearance. Different situation, different technique, but also different circumstances there for Wakelin. But this one seems like it's going to stay out, or will it? That was close, but in the end, Brown is going to just about drop in to the right corner, and it leaves away a chance for Chris Wakelin. It's impressive how snooker trains a very large audience. Well, the thing is about snooker is that it's such a great sport, but it feels like, unfortunately, the marketing, or not even down to the marketing, but, the younger generation is not really appreciating the value of snooker there, because you feel like it's going to be very much the older of a generation of a game, which has got a very loyal audience, so you're going to be keeping majority of them, because if you get yourself into snooker, very few people are just going to say that it has become boring, because for now, the standard of snooker has certainly been going up through the gears, certainly throughout the last couple of seasons, this one especially. Now then, Wakelin about to play another important shot, and he's able to just try and make sure he doesn't allow Zhao Xington to be feeling too comfortable. Although it's 7-5, I'm not going to say he's going to be feeling under pressure either. He's about to be taking a red towards the right middle here. Sometimes we see very young boys at the end of a match. Well, yeah, but I mean, once again, it comes down to the what you can see at the actual arena there. So if you're going to be talking about Manchester Central, then you need to be realising that it's going to be 0.001% there in relation to the actual people watching it. As much as it's great and it's a fantastic part of a snooker, but it's not really going to be the audience, because you're going to have someone which has been very loyal to snooker, trying to get the new generation to be involved, but how many of those kids are going to be watching a snooker match over the course of it? Because one thing about snooker, which is actually very entertaining and very interesting for it to be seen, is that the 2 points, very rarely you're going to have a snooker match that hasn't got a fun period, which means that you're always going to be anticipating that. And sometimes it's going to be worth for you to be staying over a bit of a dry period. So when nothing is happening, that something will happen at the end. You're going to have a little bit of drama. And then the second point, you never quite know what's going to happen the next second. You may be lined up on the match ball on the pink for Chip Chayanu or John Higgins in the Masters, against jump on both of those occasions, but neither one has actually managed to make that ping and needed to battle for the other circumstance. Well, I tell you what, Wakelin, he's probably about to find himself out of the picture here because he can't afford to be missing a red like that once again to the right corner. Different situation to the one that he's had in the previous frame, but same outcome. 25 points scored, and Zhao is going to be coming back to the table. And in Asia, indeed, as we've said previously, snooker is confidential in Europe. Asia is the real massive. Yeah, true. Absolutely agree with that one. And it's a little bit of a shame, but you've got so many of those different sports, and I feel like it's going to be different with the younger generation anyway, because how much of the generation now is going to be following the sports in comparison to what you've seen beforehand. It's going to be all down to video games, which I feel like I don't really understand why you can't mix all of it. Because if you're going to be going through the social media and, living your life with all the pranks and funny stuff there, you always had a little bit of room for sport there when, me and the friends were growing up. But once again, it's just going to be down to what you prefer. Now, certainly something that I prefer is to see another century rate there because Zhao has got enough points for it. And for now, especially with the way that he's managed to finish off the frame number 9 and 11, seems like he's going to have a really good chance to make another break of 70 plus. And do you ever wonder why the Irish Open is in Northern Ireland and never happens in the South? Would they not switch it every second year? Well, I'm pretty sure the political, well, not the political, but the official reason for that is the name. Home Nation Series means United Kingdom. Ireland is not quite the same thing as the Northern Ireland, which is going to be still part of the United Kingdom there, which means that if you're going to have the Scottish Open, the Welsh Open, the English Open, the logical way for you to complete that with having all those countries from the United Kingdom, which means Ireland is not part of that, which is why it's going to be held at the Northern Ireland Open, which I actually forgot the location. It's going to be Belfast, isn't it? It's going to be the capital. And get you always wondered. And yes, so another great chance here for Zhao to try and take this frame away from Chris Wakelin, even though he's going to have to be struggling to be scoring those maximum points because he's going to have a little bit of a wider line to be taken on the reds, about to disappear into the left part of the table. So then, just carefully taking that cue ball away from the left corner, make sure that he was using about as much of that pocket as was allowed there to him. So carefully taking the black into the right corner right now, and make sure he's about to position himself nicely for the red, about to be taken into the left corner as well. So they'll play it into the left part of the table. 2 points of the advantage here for Zhao. He's not going to have any one of those reds to be in a problem condition, so it's going to be all down to trying to make the best possible break that he can. As I say, he's going to be very close in terms of he needs to be using every single one of those reds, apart from the 2 of them, which he can lose 2 points away with the pink. And then he's going to be lined up with a break of 102 there, potentially. 35 right now, 67 still in open play. So if that is going to be the 4th century of the match, once again, keep that century hunt for 100 of tons worth in a season going there. Although, he's broken the record last season of making something like 14 or 15. And that comes with the qualifiers as well. So it's going to be very difficult for him to try and go beyond that point. Although if he does that in the matches like this, in a first to 10 of a battle, in the first 12 frames, if he does it 3 centuries, then he's going to be able to have a really good run to try and take that one to go all the way as well. See, Japan cleaned up the stadium after playing England. I think that's a tradition. Nice if everyone did that on all the countries. But yeah, but the Japan people are different, and they're so great when it comes to being responsible there that, unfortunately, as much as it is going to be a little bit sad to be saying, you're not going to have fans of every single country there to be as responsible as that. But I feel like it's going to be very much universal to them, because I've seen that in 22 as well, when they had the F1 over in Suzuka, and they've been doing that at the arena in the, what's it called? This is just called the Suzuka Circuit, where they were clearing up the trash after the Grand Prix was held. Now then, Zhao's just about to have a look to see. Of course, he still needs to be focused enough to be winning this frame, because Yeah, 8-4, with all the respect to Wakelin, especially with all the misses that he had in the previous couple of frames, he's not going to be able to come back from that, especially with Zhao still probably not being up to his best in terms of creating those chances, but he certainly hasn't put a foot wrong so far in terms of taking those chances away from Chris. And he seems to be doing just about that for now. Still staying on... well, to be fair, that seems I've miscounted quite badly in relation to... He's going to have a great chance to be making a century break because it seems like I had one extra red to be removed. He's got 51 points to be available and about to make the black with the 58 on the current break. And you can tell I'm not worried that he's going to win the frame because his name is Zhao. Only needs to try and take one more red away with the black. And he's going to be able to get himself lined up with 40 points of the advantage, which will get him lined up on the frame ball nicely. A little bit of a cannon towards the reds. Seem to have played this one just about well enough so that he's going to have a shot lined up into the middle. Plays this one away really nicely again. So 34 points of a lead. About to extend it to 41 here. And just carefully taking the black over to the left part of the table. Make sure that 66 points of the advantage is going to be working for him nicely. And he's still going to be very much on course for making it the break that counts. And as I say, if it's going to be down to a 1% of a chance that he does make the incredible comeback of making 30 centuries or something like that in the Tour Championship and the Crucible combined, then he's certainly going to have a really nice start to it, making 4 centuries here. As the 4th one is about to be on the horizon, playing the paint to make sure Wakelin will have to stay for another frame in his seat. And, well, certainly seems like he hasn't managed to deliver so far. About to take the red away into the left corner. 74 points of a lead. And I need Wakelin one more frame to win. And yeah, he's going to have to try and get lined up with another chance there because 8-4 is going to be the advantage here for Zhao. And now another break of 70 plus. He's had 3 of those already. A break of 70 points, a break of 134 points. And now he's about to have one which is going to be 83 and counting. Could still be 108 for him to finish. Yeah, hard now, 8-4. Well, it's going to be down to probably that chance that he got in the 9th frame, which, you know, he's certainly going to be capable of trying to take those away, but it's going to be down to if he's going to have enough motivation and patience to try and work for those chances, because at 5-3, he felt like it was always going to be a chance for you to try and, at 6-3, for him to try and step up. In the end, it hasn't worked out, and now he's about to find himself losing out on 2 frames of the bounce. And once again, Zhao completes a perfect start to the first mini session, and about to get himself lined up with a century break, the 4th one of the match, and he's now going to be moving towards 74 made in the season. Fantastic performance there from Zhao, and he gets himself lined up with a comfortable lead of 8 frames to 4 ahead of the intermission. Chris Wakelin is going to have to try and do it all right now. He needs to try and win 6 out of the remaining 7 frames, and only then he's going to be the one to try and challenge either Mark Selby or John Higgins. Now, meanwhile, we have the intermission. May as well switch over to be watching Mark Selby, so let me just try and get that stream to be working out on the full screen as well. Basically swap it out for Zhao against Wakelin. So then the situation is, Selby finds himself 10 points behind, but now he's the one at the table, and with the Reds, well, with the quick look that I had at those Reds, it seems like they're not going to be positioned badly at all. And Selby may be lined up for 3 frames on the bounce as well, because look at the position that he's got ahead of him. Apart from having the blue and the pink out of position, he's about to be lined up nicely for those. So just, of course, needs to be wary of the crowd as well, making their way out of the right-hand side of your picture on table number 2. But as I say, in relation to those 2 Reds, he's going to be lined up pretty well. And has another little kiss towards the pink, so that he's going to be getting that one away from the danger zone. Ideally, of course, would have liked to be seeing both the pink and the blue to get out of the way. And it's going to be down to... And here's the most 147 this season. And it's probably going to be down to Chipchaya Nu, I would say. Zhang Anda has made 2. Chipchaya certainly made 3. The ones that I can remember. He's had 1 in Saudi He's had one in Wuhan Open and he's had one in the World Open as well. So I can't believe that anyone will be making more than 3 there. Ronnie had 2 in the same match in Saudi. Of course, he had a 1-5-3 as well, which is not a maximum break. We've had that one cleared up because he didn't have all of those blacks to be used. He had to use the pink twice. So hence why he's not going to be making a break of 155 there and 153. But yeah, coming back to Selby here. He's got 7 points of a lead now. He's about to take the last of those reds. And he won't even need the blue to be taken. So just this red with the expensive colour, probably the pink, and then the bold colours. Oh, he's missed the reds. Wow, Selby's going to be kicking himself after this one. And where's the red going to finish? Well, it's not going to finish in a good position there for Higgins, but wow, that was a big miss now from Mark. And boy, is he going to be disappointed with this one. You're just trying to take way too much of the angle and, yeah, making contact, a significant contact with the front jaw. Higgins finds himself 7 points behind and with a difficult red to start with. Let's have a look, actually, how many 147s we've seen this season, because I'm pretty sure you're going to have a specific list of those. So, what's it going to be? I'm not sure where you can find those. News, calendar, rankings, 147s. Nope, can't find it. I'll have to search it up after the frame ends because we're still going to have time before players on table 2 will return. But I just want to see if Higgins gets this shred in. He will. It's a great shot there by John, and he's still able to control. Well, I mean, I say he's going to be able to control that cue well enough. I'm not sure he's done a decent enough of a job to make this life as easy as he could have got. But I'll tell you what, if he gets the blue, he's going to be lined up so nicely for the blue to be taken into the right corner. Of course, make sure that all of those 6 colours are about to be respotted. Well, he's had to be taking the blue, and now he needs that blue to be pulling up to the right side cushion because he's missed it. And yeah, at the end, it does seem like a blue has gone into a relatively safe place there because you can see that he was caught in 2 minds. Always had to be playing for the blue or the pink, but you know, was a bit with too much of the angle position for the pink and a bit too little angle on the blue. So had to try and force that manually, which, you know, trying to use too much of the pocket didn't work out too well. And Selby's going to be lined up for the green with needing to play the perfect shot on the brown here so that he gets that blue. Of course, the situation with him having only to be needing the bold colours is no longer going to be the case because of Higgins being the one that took the red out of the game. Hard red. It's certainly going to be a hard red for Selby, but at the end of it, or for Higgins, he was able to take it, wasn't able to take the blue though. And now 11 points of a lead here for Mark, 15 with the brown. So the blue is going to be frame ball, so you could try and roll that along the side cushion. It's probably just going to be far enough from the side cushion there, but at the same time, it's going to be quite close to the right corner as well. The factor of him having to play this shot with the rest doesn't really help the case. I wouldn't be surprised, really, if I see the brown missed. He wasn't. That cue ball is going to be heading towards the blue with too much pace to me and needs to get a good contact. He got a decent contact there with Selby, but I mean, he's pushed that blue to be closer to the corner, which always makes less of a margin for error. But at the same time, well, I can't see him missing this one. But famous last words there. Yeah, to be honest with you, honestly, I'm not even trying to do any sort of jinx, but I feel like he's just managed to push that blue nicely towards the straight line off the right corner, and he's going to be lined up nicely for the blue. So then frame ball. Didn't Selby have a tough year last year? His wife wasn't well. How's she been? Haven't heard about, but he playing good. Selby now. Yes, certainly. I've heard that at the start of this season, but it seems like, you know, it's managed to be a little bit better. I can't say that I know everything about it, but as I said, I couldn't see him missing out on this blue, and it is going to be 3 frames on the bounce for Mark Selby, and despite being 5-3 down, he finds himself ahead for the first time since the opening frame, and John Higgins certainly didn't get off to a great start here of the first 3 frames to be played. Selby's about to take the pink into the left middle, which wouldn't really matter because he's about to probably fluke it into the right middle. He won't. And yeah, John Higgins is not going to be looking at this one. 20 points as the difference, so Higgins would have needed to find 2 snookers on the pink, which is never going to happen. It is now going to be 6-5 of a lead in favour of Mark Selby, as we still wait for the players at table number 2 to come back to the arena. It does look like Selby and Zington. Well, I said Higgins was the favourite to be reaching the semi-finals, but another thing that we haven't seen too many times on this occasion, Mark Selby against Zhao Zington. I'm pretty sure the last time we've seen both of those to be playing was at the International Championship quarter-final, the last match of the Nanjing campaign that Zhao Zington was able to win before inevitably losing out to Wu Yize in the semi-finals. But remember, he's also had a very interesting last 16 of a match with Zhao Zington, where Selby had a comfortable lead of 4 frames to 1, but despite that being the case, Zhao Zington was able to come back and take that match 5 frames to 4. He's the best at coming back in games. And Selby missed red ball. This frame is over. Well, it certainly wasn't there, because he's managed to still win that frame and get himself lined up with 6-5 of an advantage. So it looked like he was going to be down to a red and a colour combination there, but even though Higgins was able to take that difficult red away, he certainly wasn't able to do anything more than that, and lined himself up with a difficult journey to the end point. And it's now going to be purely down to Zhao Zington trying to finish the job off against Chris Wakelin and make it the most comfortable match so far. If he is going to be winning the next 2 frames within 3 frames or so, make sure that Chris doesn't have that 6 to be underneath his name, because for now, the only match that hasn't been taken the distance of 18 frames or more, we've seen 4 of those. Barry Hawkins against Chip Chinu, Barry Hawkins against Neil Robertson, then Mark Allen against Jot Trump against Sean Murphy, and then of course Mark Williams against John Higgins as well. Only one of those matches went the distance. Murphy against Trump yesterday, by far the best player of the tournament, and probably a really good honourable mention for one of the best matches all around this year, certainly when it comes to race 210. Who do you think is favourite for the Worlds? Well, I mean, it's a different one to be saying right now, because you would have to say Zhao Zington is, well, I'll make a top 5 for you. You need to probably put Ronnie as the 5th, because he's done that before, and I'm not going to give him out to the 4th place, although I may have to change that later on, because Zhao Zington's got to be in there, Jot Chom has to be in there, and then it comes down to 3 players, well, maybe even 4 players: John Higgins, Karen Wilson, Mark Selby, and Wu Yize. So which one of those 4 players does actually make it into the top 5? So we established that we're going to have Zington, Trump, Ronnie in there. You probably have to say Higgins, because he's done that on 4 occasions. So which one of the 3, Selby, Murphy, or Wu Yize? Which one of the, or Wilson, I mean, which one of those 4 are you going to be taking? Probably not Wilson, because it's had a really good run at the Shanghai Masters and at the Masters of the Triple Crown, but at the end I feel like he's going to be very much the underdog, and if he makes it twice, then brilliant, but probably wouldn't be the real favourite there for that crown to be his for the 2nd time in the career. So Wilson is going to be out. Wu Yize, right now, he seems to be struggling for form badly, so I'm not going to put him ahead of John Higgins, Mark Selby, and Sean Murphy, so it's going to be down to those 3. I mean, no, sorry, I've said Higgins is going to be through there, so Selby or Sean Murphy, I mean, this is a difficult choice there, because Selby had 2 finals this season, he's managed to win 2 of them, both against Jot Trump in the Champion of Champions and at the UK Championship. He's done that on 4 occasions beforehand, but Murphy has seemed to be probably the most consistent player of the season there, apart from Trump and Zington. So I'm probably going to have to give it purely on form there to set, well, not on form, but purely on the previous couple of years away to Selby. So the 5 of mine players is going to be Selby, Higgins, Ronnie, Zington, and Trump, which is a pretty good force there in terms of a team that you have to build. So let's try and put them in order then. Selby is going to have to be put down the rankings, then Higgins is going to be down there too. So Zington number 1, Chom number 2, Ronnie probably number 3. Although, I mean, Ronnie over Selby, Yeah, probably, to be fair. Probably, yeah, happy with that. Then Selby as number 4, and then Higgins number 5. A little bit harsh that on John, but he could always swap him out with Mark Selby out there, so. And standout player for the season. Well, standout player for the season, it depends what you mean by the standout, because you can always say the player that has managed to break himself onto the arena, and Chang Min-yu or Jack Lisowski, take your pick there. Probably Chang Min-yu at the end. Chris Wakelin, well, Wakelin has been there for a couple of years, and as much as he was probably the first couple of years that he's actually managed to make it into the top 16, you know, would still probably give it out to someone like Jack there, which still yet to find himself in the top 16, but has managed to win the first ranking event, so, or Chang Min-yu. I mean, a formidable run towards the final, beating Mark Cullen, Mark Selby, Karen Wilson on his way to the final out there, so had a really good run there, Chang. But if you talk about the player that's managed to perform the best season, then once again, it's going to be purely down to Trump, Xington, Selby. I'm not sure you can put anyone else, Murphy. So Xington probably needs to stay there. Trump, it doesn't really help that he's got only one of those ranked. Yeah, so Trump is going to be eliminated there because Xington beats Trump on all cylinders. In relation to Murphy, yeah, Selby's going to have to be the same there. So it's Murphy or Xington as a standout player for the season. Consistency, you have to go with Murphy. And when it comes to paper, you probably have to go with Xington on that one. And Higgins over Sean. Archon was very informed this year. Higgins over Sean there, wow. I mean, really on longevity, you're going to say that Higgins is going to be more of a favourite than Sean Murphy there. Surprised, but okay, fair enough. Because I feel like, you know, John's been the more consistent of the two of them, but is he going to be able to withstand the pressure of 17 days of the Crucible? Let's have a look how... So I know the sort of top 3 seeded players, or including Ronnie. Let's have a look how Selby and Higgins have been doing in the last couple of championships, because I know Selby managed to win it in 21. I know he made it into the final against Luca in 23 there, but what's he had last season? So Higgins makes the well, that was 2 seasons ago, sorry. Higgins makes it into the quarters. So he's not going to have loads of those ranking points to defend, but at least he's going to have 50,000. Selby didn't even make it into the second round there, which is super surprising to me. Yeah, he's lost out to the lad from Leicester of Joe O'Connor, 10 frames to 6. I'll tell you what, Selby's going to be buzzing through those ranking points. He's not going to get any worse from him because he's not going to be losing any of them. Because he's going to be the top seeded player, so it's only going to go up from him at that point. So Higgins was in the quarterfinals, where he lost out to Wilson by 13 frames to 8. And Zhao been locked in by, well, not quite, because it's going to be the intermission of a break, so it's going to be 15 minutes. So it's going to be down to probably 3 more minutes out there, as Selby's the one capitalising on the mistake from Higgins there at the previous occasion. And about to try and extend his lead. I'll tell you what, something that I would like to see, Selby against Xington in the semi-finals. We've seen that before at the, well, as I say, at the, what's it called, World Grand Prix and at the International Championship. Surprisingly to me, both of those matches have gone the distance, and both of those matches were won by Zhao Xington, despite the decider probably not being his strongest aspect of the game, although not being his weakest either. So, now, what was I going to say? Yes, let's have a look at how they did last year as well, because I know Williams was in the final of the class of 92. I'm not sure where Selby and Higgins were actually there, because they certainly weren't in the semis. I feel like Higgins was the one to lose out in the deciders to Mark Williams in a really great battle for that quarterfinal. So Selby once again, I mean, don't tell me that Selby didn't actually make it into the second round 2 seasons in a row there. Wow, he hasn't. I'm pretty sure he lost out to Ben Wollaston though, because I remember Ben making himself to go into the last 16 of a match. Yeah, he lost out to Zhao, so he was actually 2 years in the bounce where Selby wasn't able to get past the first round. I'll tell you what, when it comes to the Crucible, Selby's going to have absolutely none of those ranking points to defend, which, to be fair, is incredible how he's managed to stay in the top 7, despite having none of a million of those ranking points to try and defend. I mean, it's a big if there, but if he would have won 2 of those tournaments of the Crucible, he would have been the world #1 by a bit of a margin there. So certainly could have been a bit of a different story, but it's going to have loads of motivation for him coming at the World Championship, and could easily come up with being the world #4 or 5 there if he does go the distance. Do not misjudge, I love Higgins too. I know how much he's a tough player. Sean was more consistent this year. A lot of training for W Championship, he said. Higgins and Selby end up being 4 and 5. They'd be on course for a quarterfinals of a match. Yeah. To be fair, let's have a look at how the 2-year list is looking, because so end of season rankings, it doesn't really matter. And so let's have a look at live. So then, Wilson is not going to be involved here. Robertson is not going to be involved for now. Zhao is the world #4. John Higgins is the world #5. So that is going to stay like that unless Selby is going to be able to win the tournament. Because Williams is going to lose those 175,000 worth of ranking points. So he's going to be dropping down to the world #6. Weezer takes the 10th place away from Ronnie. And Hawkins is going to be taking that place from Ronnie as well. So Ronnie's dropped down all the way to the world #12, being very close to Chris Wakelin now. And that probably leaves Wakelin with being... Well, he needs to win this match, to be fair, for him to be jumping over Ronnie O'Sullivan. But you could easily see a match of someone like Selby and Ronnie to be clashing in the second round, which, as much as it gives you drama, you also want to try and save the best players until last. And... didn't think of a 2-year list. Yeah, so it's going to be down to, if you're talking about a 1-year list, by the way, we're about to come back onto the arena for the table #2. I was about to say the main table, not quite. But still, it's going to be loads of the action here for the players. And look at that, perfect start there from Zhao. And when you think this man can do it all, and a break-off shot from Wakelin, and then straight away a chance for Zhao to come his way. Brilliant long red, and look at the position for the black that he has as well. About to be taking this one away. So, might 2 of them could meet in second. Well, that's the story there. I've heard Hendry talk about it on the podcast a couple of months ago, but I mean, technically speaking, from the maths point of view, if Selby is to be the world #6, which he probably will be, especially if he beats Higgins, which is looking likely for now, and gets himself through to the semi-finals, then he should be jumping Williams as well. The world #6 and the world #12 to be meeting in the second round of a Crucible is not going to be something that, wow, is a ridiculous thing to be happening. It's probably something that you would expect there. So if it's not going to be Selby, it's going to have to be someone very difficult there for Ronnie to try and face, because he's not going to be able to avoid top seeded player, because he's not going to be the top seeded player himself. He needs to try and, well, absolutely hammer whoever the qualifier is going to be in the first round of the Sheffield. And then try and take his second round of a match away. And great style as well. Ridiculous. Well, he'll be down to it, but for now, we're about to be seeing a miss from Zhao, positioning himself awkwardly on the red to be taken into the right-hand side of the table. And, well, this is what you have the 4 frames of a cushion for, so that you could forgive yourself for those mistakes for now. Probably until the point that Chris Wakelin wins 3 frames of the bounce or something like that, and manages to put this frame to be putting this match wide open again. For now, he's got 15 points to try and score, only for him to be level with Zhao in terms of points for this frame. But now, we haven't seen too much of the action here in between the players, but at the same time, it's going to be purely down to the pace of the game, the way that those frames have been won, by a break of 70 plus points to be made in every single one of those frames. 71 by Wakelin, 70 by Zhao. And then we've seen 2 great century breaks of 108 and 134 there by Zhao as well. Wakelin is about to be slightly awkwardly positioned for this red. And make no mistake about it, just because we've seen a couple of those reds to be eliminated by Zhao, it doesn't mean this position is going to be automatically easy there for Chris. And if anything, it probably will mean the opposite if he's unable to get himself with the angle lined up for the yellow. He needs to be taking this one carefully at the left-hand side of the table. So, well, I'll tell you what, if you're going to be playing the blue, then you are going to leave it down to luck. And it's never nice when you haven't had a run of the ball for 3 frames to be trusting it down to this shot. And he's played it horribly wrong to me. And he's about to pot the pink as well. Yep, that one will drop, and it's going to be a foul of 6 points in favour of Zhao. But even if it wasn't, I feel like the red, which Xington is about to take on, inevitably, into the middle, I feel like Xington is going to make it, but Wakelin would have had a really tough run to try and take that red to go all the way. You know, Zhao is going to be thinking about all the reds that he could give away if this red is not going to be a successful attempt. For now, about to position that cue ball nicely for the red to be taken into the left middle. Seems to have missed this one. Has he? Yes, he has. Surprise there from Zhao Xington to be seeing him miss like that, because he's usually going to be so perfect when it comes to those type of shots. Not on this occasion. May still be a little bit rusty and raw after that break of an intermission. So then, Wakelin is about to be coming back to the table here. Get himself lined up with a red to be carefully cutting into the left corner, and all he needs to do is to be positioned for the blue or the yellow. Doesn't want to be straight. Whatever he does, he doesn't want to be straight in this one, and he's just about going to have the angle to try and take that cue ball down the table here. But is he going to have enough of the angle? Seems like the answer is going to be positive, but still have to wait and see on the situation with those two reds. By the way, Higgins is about to potentially have a comeback in frame number 12. 20 points behind, but still having plenty of those reds to be available. But a couple of them are going to be in a very difficult position. So one of those matches seems to be quite one-sided performance. The other one seems like it's going to be heading all the way. 6 frames each there potentially. And once again, just unable to finish it off there with Wakelin. And having one of those difficult reds to be taken in the end has proved to be enough for that red to be missed. And all the reds have now been spread out nicely. Apart from the first shot to be taken here from Zhao Xington, it's going to be a very straightforward finish there to the frame, being available there to the world champion. Now, as I say, this shot is never going to be nice to him because it's a rest shot. He's going to have to be placing that cue ball carefully in relation to the other reds on the left-hand side. But if he takes this one away, then he's got a great line of taking this frame to go the distance and go in his favour. Just doesn't want to be straight on the blue. And, well, he's going to be close, but I feel like anything but straight. And he's going to be in a dreamland of his own, because somehow, despite giving 2 chances away to Wakelin, he's about to have 10 points of the advantage anyway. And 28 points on the board here as well. Number 1 seen in the chat. Well, I'll tell you what, it's going to be down to the 1-year list or 1 stream list. If we're going to be talking about that one, but certainly something that I can appreciate. Appreciate the action and the activity. And yeah, Wakelin seems like he's not going to be able to give you any luck with that winning the frame there. He seems like he's just completely out of his depth, and something that has happened to Weezer yesterday seems to have been happening to Chris Wakelin here today. But it was always going to be a huge challenge for him to try and defeat the player in relation to him being the world champion at the last season, but as well as trying to do that at the this season as well. So they're about to take a red into the right corner. As I say, he can try and mix it up there, even though he's not going to have the pink to be having in between those reds. He's always going to have the blue and the black to be available, with so many of those reds to be in open play, positioned nicely. It's not quite going to be the story of John Higgins though, because he's about to be leaving a red over the corner pocket for Mark Selby. But Selby's going to have one more of those to try and take it all the way. So then about to be taking another red here to the right corner and carefully placing that cue ball to be lined up for the blue. A little bit fortunate there with the kiss, because it could have easily gone wrong. In the end, forced that red to be over the left middle. And it still lines up nicely, even though it's going to be the wrong side of a blue. But because of that red being available right next to the left middle, he's going to have a great chance. Is it up points? Is more right up? Yeah, I feel like it's going to be down to the messages. So the more messages that you have in the chat, the more sort of activity that you're going to be given. And the more activity you have, the lesser of a number that you'll have next to your name. So then, 36 points of a difference. And Zhao Xington, by the way, only in the 12 and a half frames and he's going to be knocking on the door of 1,000 of those points scored. And it could mean two things. Either he's been playing some incredible snooker, which is going to be quite difficult for you to argue with, but it could also be down to the resistance from the opposite side of a party not being the best there. And something that you probably have to say about Chris Wakelin. About to be winning another frame though, Mark Selby. Well, something that I certainly didn't have on my bingo card was John Higgins to be losing 4 frames on the bounce. And after being 5-3 ahead, he's about to be 5-7 down there. And just carefully taking the red into the right middle. Make sure he takes that red away carefully well. And still gets himself positioned for the black. About to be taken. So 51 points at the table. So 52 points as a difference. Make sure he gets that black to be rolling into the left corner. And just carefully playing through those reds. Oh, I'll tell you what, you wouldn't really want to have a plant of those reds to be taken into the right corner of the table. So 59 points of a difference. So he's not really going to be having any more of a trouble in relation to winning this frame. But Wakelin may have to come back to the table just for the sake of it. And it's not going to be a century break or even close to it. Now then, 72 points as the lead here for Zhao. What's it going to be in relation to the Chris Wakelin here? 59 points as the difference. He needs to be taking this red carefully into the left corner and try and get it down to just one red to be at the table. And then it will be purely down to trying to make sure he gets those 2 reds with the black, and then doing it on the last red in relation to getting that snooker lined up. So 51 points behind, so that leaves him with, what is it now going to be, 43 at the table. So 2 snookers for him to be level and on for a respot. For now, it's 50 points down as he takes another black here. So with Selby about to complete the well-earned of a great ending to the 8th frame, to the 12th frame I should say. He's about to be lined up with 25 points of a break, and taking that brown, make sure that it is going to be 7-5 points frames of a lead in favour of Mark Selby, and John Higgins find himself in the world of trouble because, well, it seems like the story of the world of the Tour Championship of the final is certainly repeating itself because, what was it now, 5-1 that he was up against Selby. Selby was able to take it down to 5-8 in his favour before John Higgins able to win that match by 10 frames to 8, and it's something that he felt was certainly one of the biggest wins of his career. And he was asked about it at before his match with Selby, certainly saying that that's still going to be the relevant point. Well, this red, is he going to drop there? Well, somehow that's going to be a fluke and a half there in favour of Zhao. I mean, I'm not sure how he's managed to get that red to be rolling into the right corner, but whatever it was, it certainly was down to Zhao taking that one to go all the way. And it is going to be Zhao 9, Chris Wakelin 4. A little bit fortunate there from Zhao, but at the end, he got the black to be safe. And it was always going to be mission impossible for Wakelin to try and get 3 snookers, even though, to be fair, he could have tried to get in on the black in relation to the free ball. But even if he gets that free ball in, it still needs to be taken with the black, which would have been out of position. So way too many variables for Chris Wakelin at that point. But now, 13 frames in, seems like there's only one variable at the main stage here. And it's going to be down to Zhao to try and complete here the formidable performance at the second session. Still, probably being in gear 4, gear 3. You know, had a really good performance to start the morning session away. The evening session yesterday, I mean. And then it just seemed like he was marching his way with no speeding up needed. Wakelin just didn't put up too much of a fight there. He needed to be having a couple of really good frame wins at the start of it so that he was able to overcome that 5-3 points of a difference. He needs 6 in a row. He does. He got 8 in a row against Chang Minyu and Weezer though. I'm never going to get tired of saying this until the end of this particular season, but you know, as I say, especially with Zhao being so good sometimes when he comes to being such a good front runner, but Now he's going to have 6 opportunities for him to be over the line. And Wakelin will do really well for this one to be taken. Probably 2 more frames. And try and make it exactly on the score sheet of what I predicted to be 10 frames to 6 in favour of Zhao. Now then, Chris Wakelin, he's about to take the break-off shot. And make sure it's going to be down to the 14th frame, not to be his last break-off. And for that to be the case, he needs to survive 2 more frames there. And survive is probably going to be the right verb to be using, because right now it seems like he's anything but comfortable. As the referee trying to make sure that people on table number 1 are not going to be getting in the way and in the ears of the players. And brilliant shot there by Zhao. Once again, such a good long potter that he is. And look at that cue ball running perfectly towards the brown and the green. It's only going to be a matter of time if this form of Zhao is going to be getting himself to another ranking event semi-final this season. Had one in Nanjing, had one at the World Grand Prix, at the Players' Championship. Of course, had the Invitational of the Shanghai Masters and the Champion of Champions as well. But he's about to make another one here. Surely, Wakelin is not going to have the response. And it's now going to be down to whether he's going to be coming back to the table here. Bit of a bad shot, though, from Zhao. I'm not sure he's going to be seeing the black here at all. And if he needs to be taking the pink into the right middle, it's going to be anything but easy. So just try and take that pink with making sure that the cue ball is going to be lined up nicely. Well, I tell you what, that's such a good and an underrated shot that he's played. Although, he's pushed one more of those reds to be in the open play. So I'm not quite sure on how much of the angle he's got on this red, because that red is going to be in the way of the black. So that leaves you with 2 of those options to be making. Either you try and take that cue ball for the pink if it's going to be available for the right middle, or as an alternative, you try and take that cue ball to be heading for the line of the blue ball shot. The pink is going to be heading towards the main bunch. So it's going to be right in the middle of those reds. So as I say, you're not going to have a chance of placing that cue ball on those reds. On the pink, I should say, for the majority of this frame. But look at that for a shot. Brilliantly cued, despite using the rest. Able to get enough of the action on the cue ball so that he's going to be lined up for the black with the left-hand side of it, so that you can try and take it nicely into the left corner. 19 points now as the break for Zhao. And of course, after seeing 8 frames at the first session, it looks like we are going to be heading for, what's he now going to be, 6 frames. If he's going to be taking this break to be the one that takes him over the finish line, and with probably not even 2 hours of the main action. It's going to be 1 hour and 40 for now on the clock. It's going to be one of the quickest 6-frame and the sessions of snooker that you can possibly imagine there. Because even if you take a match of 1st to 4, sometimes it takes a little bit longer than that, but it tells you everything that you need to know about the style of Zhao. And the only frame that Wakelin has taken so far was certainly done in a great style and great fashion as well. The weirdest thing about Wakelin's winning that frame 110 was it probably was the most difficult of every single one of those that he had. Not sure when the points stopped counting, but he's now lined up with 35 being the difference. About to take another 8 at the left middle, and carefully take that cue ball. Once again lines up for the blue. Doesn't want to be straight, at all, and he is going to be straight. So yeah, he seems like he's taking a turn here in the wrong direction there, Zhao. Unless he's going to be going for the brown. And yeah, he seems like he's going to settle for just playing that cue ball with a little bit of distance in relation to the red at the right corner of the table. That still is going to be possible for him, but far from being an easy shot for him to be taking on. Loads of power on the cue ball needed, and loads of cue action. And look at that, once again, showing why he is the world champion and why you certainly can call him the king of the cue action, the king of the positional play. It was a really difficult red for him to be taking, and not only is taking that one into the heart of the pocket, but he's going to have all of those reds to be positioned in a perfect manner, and he's going to have a choice of blue, green, and pink to be taken in all parts of the table. In the end, his choice is going to come for the pink. And he's played a bit of a bad shot here. And it's going to come down to where the pink is going to be respotted, because if he goes into his own spot and he's not blocking the red to be heading into the right middle, which is not the case, I'll tell you what, this could be one of the weirdest situations that Zhao will find himself with, because despite having 7 reds to be in such a great place, his best chance of, in his only chance actually, of continuing the break is going for the red into the green pocket here. So then, has he got it? He's got no pressure on him at all, so I would expect this red to disappear, and it does disappear, but once again, having a bit of a bad spell in the positional play for now for Zhao, and after a difficult red into the green pocket, needs to be taking the pink into the yellow pocket as well, but look at that. I mean, it doesn't really get any easier, any more difficult than that. But at the same time, it's such a brilliant snooker shown by Zhao, and 13.5 frames. Look at how many points he's managed to score already. 1,016, just for contrast, and for a little bit of context for you. 19 frames for Sean Murphy and Judge Trump. Each one of them have been able to score 1,000 and maybe 100 points at the end for Trump, as he was able to win that match. So great consistency there from Zhao, and still, you know, he would have had potentially 5 more frames for him to score 20 points in each of those on average, and he would have been able to be heading over the line there. And still having such a good run here at the Tour Championship. He was always going to be a little bit rusty in relation to the first match that he has to play. This is the unstoppable Zinton, and the worst thing for Wakelin is, apart from this frame, all of his chances have actually came from Wakelin's mistakes. So you're not even seeing the dangerous form of Zinton, where he's going to be the one getting his own chances there on the board, able to go for a fantastic long shot and getting himself to be lined up with those chances to be taken 8 times out of 10. For now, this has been a demolition job from Zhao Zinton's point of view, and in those, what is it now going to be? 14 frames, so 6 frames at the second session. Wakelin was only able to score 160 points, which is going to be nothing in comparison to 600 points or something like that Zhao Zinton was able to score. He started with 550, so he's now going to be on 1,047 here. So he's going to be lined up perfectly well to try and take it. Another century break. He will need these reds at the right-hand side of the table to be taken. So then just making sure that it will be the 5th century break of the match, if the maths is correct there, or maybe the 4th one. 100, no, he's going to be the 5th one, because he's made 2 already in this session, and now the black for the century number 5. Certainly doesn't get any better than that. 5 centuries there in 14 frames from Zhao Zinton, a form that Chris Wakelin would have been dreaming about before the start of the second session, but in the end, it was the story for Zhao Zinton to make it a break of 101 points. And incredible reception from the crowd. Chris Wakelin had no answer to that at all, and he's going to have only positive things to say over to Zhao Zinton. That becomes the 3rd semi-finalist of the draw there. You're looking good, Zhao, with the world next. Yes, certainly is going to be the case, but he's got unfinished business with the Tour Championship for now, because he becomes the 3rd player, and from all the different nations, is he going to be 4 out of 4 with Scotland to be rounding up there, the China, the Australia and England in the quarterfinals, or is it going to be very much the home advantage for the 2 guys from England that have been sharing the stage of the UK Championship at the Barbican in York to try and take it with Mark Selby against Zhao Zinton? He certainly is going to be a classic, but you can't say John Higgins against Zhao Zinton is going to be boring either. Whatever it is, it's been great entertainment that. And by Zhao Zinton, not so much with Chris Wakelin. He felt like he had probably a little bit of, struggle and form at the end for him to try and deliver to make it a competitive match. In the end, certainly, it's seen loads of quality, and Zhao Zinton still keeping that incredible and ridiculous dream of making 100 centuries in a season just about alive. He'll need to try and keep it up, though, and make around 8 more centuries in semi-final and potentially reaching the final stage as well. He's going to be able to do it if he does go the distance of the tournament. And can he try and win the 3rd ranking of the season after the World Grand Prix and the Players' Championship? And, he's played Selby on his way to winning that World Grand Prix. He's played Higgins on his way to winning the Players' Championship. Can he try and complete the final of the setup against either one of those 2? whoever it's going to be great entertainment, and hopefully it will be slightly closer to, going the distance. By far the lowest of number of those frames that we've seen so far in the Tour Championship. Both of those matches, by the way, featuring Chris Wakelin, one of them for the right reason for him, and the other one for all the wrong reasons as well. Anyway, that's going to be it. There's not much to analyse, and very much from the starting points of the second session. I mean, I'm not going to say I watched the first one, but as far as I'm aware, there was very few points in the match where Wakelin was closer than 3 frames there. 3-0, 3-1, 5-3, 6-4, and at that point onwards, it was always down to 3 frames and all there. And you could see 6-4 was always going to be different for Chris Wakelin to try and take that one further than, sort of being 7-6 ahead or something like that against someone as consistent with his chances being presented as Zhao. In the end, he's gone on a bit of a bad run of losing 4 frames on the bounce. He started the match with losing 3 of those, and then he's ended with losing 4 in the bounce, which makes it a 7-0 of the start and the end there. Clearly, a bit of a performance to forget there for Chris, but he'll be back at the Crucible, and someone that certainly will be back at the Crucible with Zhao looking to try and get another title on the board before looking to break that Crucible curse and get himself to be one of the real forces for that Crucible crown, to be doubling the ranking points and ultimately the title numbers that he has at Sheffield. For now, this is going to be it, and certainly looking forward to be seeing on who's going to be the opposition player to be playing against Zhao. Is it going to be Selby or Higgins? We'll have to find out. Tune in tomorrow, though, for the confirmed lineup. Trump against Neil Robertson. 2 sessions to be seeing the repeat of the UK Championship or the revenge loaded for Robertson. Stay tuned in. Thanks for joining, and once again, look out for the semi-final action. About to get really interesting. Let's see who's going to be the one to be winning the Tour Championship. Thank you again, and thanks for watching.
Something to hold on to, gotta find it first. But here I am, 'cause I've been laying under palm trees, waiting for the summer, knowing there's nowhere to go. 'Cause I